And that I think right there has eliminated for me the mom guilt that people talk about, or dad guilt or parent guilt or whatever. Like, I genuinely on a day-to-day basis don't feel that way because of these systems we set up.
So stuff will often manifest in your relationship that you have to like, wow, we're bringing more things into light in our marriage. And then all of a sudden now it's happening in your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're going deeper on this thing in our marriage and our family. And then it's happening in your business. Mm-hmm. So I think people think these two things are separate, but really like this is the roots of the fruits that you see out there.
That all like bubbles to the surface when you're an entrepreneur, and then leading a team even more so. And as Stephen was sharing, like I was getting emotional because
today, we have a special couple that we're so honored to bring onto the show, and we know you guys are going to love them. We had the opportunity to meet them at a marketing conference, and right away, as soon as we met them, we realized, okay, this couple has a lot of wisdom to share, whether they're talking about building wealth, whether they're talking about prioritizing their family while simultaneously reaching their financial goals, or they're talking about marketing. I mean, this couple is a wealth of knowledge. So we are so excited to have them on the show. So we just wanted to say a fantastic welcome to Stephen and Chelsey Diaz, the Rainmaker Family duo. Guys, how you guys doing today?
Oh, so good. We're so excited to be here to connect with you guys, to serve your audience. Thank you so much for having us. We feel the same way about you guys. You guys are amazing. I love what you're doing and how you are showing couples how you can do this and do it well. So I'd love to be here.
Absolutely. Awesome. We're so glad to have you guys. And I know because of what it is that you do and how great you are at working with, moms particularly, and helping them build wealth in a way that doesn't compete with their family time. I know that's a synergy that we have between us, right? I want to start off with, kind of a taboo topic, so to speak. So in today's day and age, we hear a lot of people talk about passive income. And I know because you guys help people build wealth in a way that doesn't compete with their family time, I'd love to just hear your thoughts on what you think passive income is and maybe how that differs from what a lot of people may think when they hear passive income.
That's a good question. I feel like there's a difference between a teacher and a mentor. A mentor is someone who's like paid the price. And I kind of speak from paying the price of trying to chase the elusive passive income unicorn, and we were in a service-based business. We are probably low six figures in that business. But we had really kind of grown it to the ceiling, right? Like we only had so much time, and we had a season where it was just like kind of a heavy hustle season. Mm-hmm. And our friends stopped calling us, our family stopped calling us. Everyone was like, you're so busy. And like, yes, we were making good money, but there was a ceiling. And this is before we had kids. Now we have two boys. And so we really went on this journey of like searching for the mythical passive income unicorn, right? And I watched every webinar, bought every course, did all the things. And really like what I think that word does, passive income, is it sets the wrong expectations. And I do believe that you can achieve passive income. I think that is a thing. But what we actually started to shift our language to was leveraged income. And this is why leverage income is better than passive income, because leverage income is a more realistic thing that you can achieve today. Passive income is always something like, it's like a house. You got to build the house, you got to build the foundation, and then you can live in the house. But even living in a house isn't fully passive. Like every once in a while, the roof breaks and you got to like replace it, and you got to do some maintenance here and there. And so leverage income is nice though, because you can start to do it today. And so I know Dave Ramsey, he's big into the debt snowball. You guys have heard of this, right? Where it's like your debt in little chunks and you big this snowball bigger and bigger. And I like the idea, but I was like, what if I created a leveraged income snowball, right? Ooh. And in my business, I started to buy back my time, so to say, to outsource things and to make my business more and more passive. Right. So we started our business and really this started with even in our service-based business, just hiring out part of it. A thing that was taking us a lot of time, a thing that was, a little hard to let go of. But as soon as we started to let go of that, now it's like, wow, this business is 50% leveraged, right? We have 50% more time. We're able actually to increase our income because of that. And so over time, you can get businesses more and more leveraged to the point where, we had our second son and we took 2 months off of the business. and the business still generated millions of dollars of revenue during that time frame. We actually hit the Inc. 5000 list during that time frame, got the announcement of one of the fastest growing companies in America. And so you can get your business to a highly leveraged state. And I truly think that's the goal, instead of just chasing this passive income thing. Because I think when you chase passive income, you're going to get into a lot of shady opportunities, because there's a lot of people preaching it online. And it is possible. Like, I think real estate, like you can do like funds and things like that. But for businesses, I just think of leverage. Leverage is like, I want to put in an hour and it'd be like 100 hours, you know, and that's true leverage. And that's what we're searching for and growing in our business.
I love that. I love the term leveraged income, because what that implies, at least to me, is that there is kind of like a foundation that gets built that allows you to then leverage your time more and more and more as you go, versus what I have seen. And, you know, we've experienced this with a lot of the clients that we've worked with, is when you get caught up in the passive income sort of trap, when you then get into business and you experience, there's some work that goes into business. There's some challenges, there's some uncertainty and all these things that come up. What tends to happen is somebody who was expecting it to be passive then thinks that they're doing everything wrong.
Wait a second. I thought you hit a couple buttons and the computer spits out millions of dollars.
Yeah. And when we were like new marketers, you know, like, and we were selling this opportunity, passive income is a buzzword. And so like people would come in, but then we'd find, like, we're big believers in, we call it check the fruit, right? Like, what is this tree producing? You know, is it good apples or bad apples? And the passive income word produced bad apples because people would have that expectation on the front end. And then if it was just a little bit harder than they thought it was going to be, then they're like, this is not passive, right? But overall, like, you know, when you do build a business, it can be super highly leveraged. And you guys know that. Like, we have multiple businesses, like, at this point, that we've gotten to that place where it's like, okay, this is very passive. It doesn't mean it's 100% passive all the time, but like being able to take off, like, that's the difference between owning a business and a business owning you, right? If you have to like be a slave to the business and like be up all at night and like, you know, not be able to take a vacation ever, like, that's not passive.
Right.
100%.
But what is so cool about what you're saying is that the dream that so many entrepreneurs have of building a business that is scalable, that is profitable, but still gives them time with their family, that in and of itself is not a pipe dream. That is actually possible, and it's a reality. And you guys exemplified that with growing multiple businesses and still taking 2 months off, and the business is producing revenue for you. So I love that distinction that you guys made, because even though maybe income isn't always 100% passive, you can structure and build your business in such a way that is leverageable and produces the freedom that got you into entrepreneurship in the first place. So I love that. You guys mentioned the concept of, you know, a lot of marketers out there that kind of peddle things that are, let's just say, fall under the category of shiny objects, right? And obviously you guys are very different than that. You guys have the fruit of a very successful business while simultaneously prioritizing the things that matter most. But I bet when you guys were growing as an entrepreneur couple, you were probably presented yourselves with so many opportunities to excel in and use your entrepreneurial spirits in. So a question that I would love to ask you guys is, as a couple, how do you guys evaluate opportunities and distinguish between a shiny object versus something you both want to put your time and energy into?
That's really good.
That's a good question. Man, I feel like I've been talking a lot, so please jump in. But we always come back to gardening analogies for some reason. I already talked about trees and fruit. And so there's a great analogy from the book Pumpkin Plan, which I've actually not read. I've just heard the analogy, and I've read other books by this author. And he references this in his other books, that like if you're trying to grow a bunch of pumpkins, right, and you just have this huge, you know, patch of pumpkins, they're all going to grow a certain size because there's a certain amount of nutrients that are flowing through those vines into the pumpkins. But if you want to grow the award-winning pumpkin, you cut off all the other pumpkins and you let all the nutrients that are available go into that one pumpkin or those two pumpkins, right? And that's how you grow award-winning pumpkins. And I, again, share from kind of I feel like looking back, I prided myself in being like a serial entrepreneur, right? Like I was like, we have 8 businesses, and I just was like super excited about that. But the problem was all of those businesses moved the needle just a little bit. Like they all worked just a little bit. And the little bit just, added up, but it wasn't like massive, like where we have now. And so it was actually in that season, I actually had a dream, and it's a weird dream, but like, I feel like weird dreams are helpful if you pay attention to the symbolism behind them. And I saw like in the dream, I saw like a pot of boiling water and like a handful of noodles, like spaghetti.
Yeah.
And we were really in this spaghetti season where we're like throwing stuff against the wall, seeing what would stick. And so I kind of like heard a voice say in the dream, if you boil one noodle, it'll go faster. Like it'll just boil faster. And so like I woke up and I immediately knew it had to do with the businesses. It was like we were just trying to boil too many noodles and we just need to put one in, and just focus on one. And so we're big believers in that, like everything works. Like almost everything you see on the internet, all the ads you see, like, okay, of course there are some just legitimate scams out there, but like everything works. It's just focus is people's problem. And people need to put blinders on. When you choose an opportunity, put blinders on and put all your nutrients into that thing. And so as soon as I had that dream, we started just cutting noodles, we started cutting branches off, and we sold the business. We stopped helping out in our church youth group, even though it was hard. Like we had our time, our nutrients spread way too thin. And we started putting it all into Rainmakers, what we're doing now. And that's what truly took it to the next level, was that focus.
And I think the focus 100%. And I think, any opportunity will work when you focus on it. But beyond that, like taking a step back even more so, I think going back to, and I'm sure you guys talk about this often, like having a shared vision and a shared why, like, why are we doing this? Why are we building this business? Where are we going? Where are those headlights, those blinders that Stephen's talking about? Like, where is it actually taking me? And then is this next opportunity or business partnership, is it in alignment, and is it going to take me to that ultimate end result? And I think when we are looking at even nowadays, like people coming up and wanting to do different like business partnerships, it's like, are we in alignment? Like, do we have a shared vision, and does it make sense? Or, there's so many, like I think about like Stephen is very like gifted and talented and marketing, and he could do a million different things, and he could go on like the crypto like world and start doing day trading because he could probably figure it out. But it's like, should he be spending his time doing that right now? No. And I like, we're laughing, but this is like a legitimate conversation. We have a friend who's like pull him over to like, hey, you should do some of this. It'll only take a little bit of time. But it's like, no, like his time is better spent like pouring into the vision of like this awesome business that we've built already, instead of getting sidetracked already and then with our family. So I think going back to like, is this like decision in alignment with some of my core values? Is it going to get me to my desired result faster? Is it going to actually help me? Or is it going to just kind of like create some little extra cash over here that I need, because I think that's another temptation is like, oh, I see money being made over here. This person's promising me that. But it's like, again, if you would just put your focus back into that main vehicle that you have up and running in systems, if you just put more time and effort into that, it would grow more.
Yeah. So with that context set, I am curious, like, what did that experience look like when you guys went through that? So like, Stephen, when you had the dream, right? The spaghetti dream, which is just, I'm so glad that came out on this podcast. When you had the spaghetti dream and you went out and you shared that with Chelsey, like, Chelsey, what was your response? Like, how did you guys decide to then just move, like cut off the other noodles and move forward with just the one?
Yeah, some of them were I was relieved for some of them, and others of them was hard. So I was at the time, just to give you very practical examples, we were still like in our service-based business, and we had another business kind of attached to that. But honestly, it was like a photo booth that was helping us at weddings. We were wedding photographers. And honestly, that created more stress in our life and our business. And like, it was such a small amount of little extra money that like it brought in, but the stress of that. So for me, that was great to like let go of that. But then on the other side, the harder part was like this youth group, these students that we had been investing in for 6 years, like having to say no to them and having to say no to like seeing them every week. But at the same time, like, I think we both knew deep down, like in our heart, that season was closing. I think we have to be very aware of like, what season are you in? Does this make sense? Am I getting life when I'm showing up to this event, or is it feeling more draining and like, oh, do I really have to show up in 30 minutes, you know? And that's kind of how we were feeling. So I think there was a mix of like sadness and grief when you let something go. I think that's naturally part of being a human. Like, those are good, healthy emotions, but then also like, no, this is right. This is like really what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you say that it's accurate to say that the way that you decided on the opportunity to pursue was based on your shared vision, as well as evaluating the different opportunities in your life and where your time was going, and asking, does this time that I spend with other people, does that give me energy or drain my energy? Are those three things, are those your decision-making frameworks?
Definitely. I think like if you look at a vine, right? Come back to the garden.
More gardening analogies. I was hoping we would have more gardening.
Yeah, we'll just keep it going.
It's that time of year, planting all of
you would think I'm a great gardener. I'm not. I just I learn a lot from, I think, creation, right? So when you go to a garden, like we were actually at the time, we were also doing video work, and we were shooting a video for a winery called Opus One, and they were like wanting us to document the entire journey of basically a grape, like its whole life, like planting, growing, trimming. And so I feel like I was receiving insight from that. And when you want to grow a lot of fruit, right, you have to go trim the vine. But where do you trim? You trim back to like on the branches that have fruit. And so if you're in this season of like figuring out where do I focus, the question you need to ask is, where's the fruit? And so when we were like, what do we trim? We were trimming the stuff that wasn't having like the potential for more fruit, right? It was like, okay, this thing's kind of tapped here. This thing's causing more, the fruit of this one's stressed. Cut that one off. If we cut this one off, we put more in here. So I think that's a key thing when you're looking at opportunities. You probably already have what it takes. Like you probably already have, like people listening to this, you already probably have a proven offer. You probably already have existing customers. So like, if you just lean into that, you can steward it and multiply it and get it to 7-8 figures instead of that, like spreading your energy, trying to do a million different things and just plateauing. So I always ask, where's the fruit? And sometimes you trim back to the fruit, which can be a little bit painful because you're cutting stuff out, but you're focusing all the nutrients into growing more of that vine that's doing really well.
100%. I love it. An analogy we give that unfortunately is not a gardening analogy is, but sometimes it's an experiment that we have our clients do, is to take a piece of paper out into the yard and put a magnifying glass over it on a sunny day and watch what happens. If you just put a piece of paper out in the sun, it might just get warm. But if you put a magnifying glass over the piece of paper, it will focus the energy from the sunlight, and it can create a beam so strong that it can actually burn a hole through the piece of paper.
Wow.
And when you recognize the power of focus and you leverage that in your business, that's usually when us entrepreneurs are able to see the biggest breakthroughs in our life. I do want to kind of pivot into a little bit more into the dynamic of how you guys operate as two entrepreneurs in one relationship. Obviously, you guys have grown a lot over the years. And I know that just by talking to you guys and even being on your podcast, we had a discussion about how in the early years, Stephen, you were, correct me if I'm wrong, more of kind of like the leading entrepreneur, kind of the person that was kind of leading the charge. And Chelsey, you were kind of like learning alongside him. But as time has grown and you both have grown in your space, it's gotten to the point now where you both are running this business together, and the power dynamic is much more shared and collaborative versus one person being up front and the other person being in the back. Is that correct? And if so, I would love for you to walk us through what that evolution looked like from both of your perspectives.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, like I definitely was more like the born entrepreneur, like as a kid, I was always doing entrepreneurial things. And so I definitely, I think, stretched Chelsey in the early days of our relationship. We started dating in high school. Excuse me. We started dating in high school, and I was always just like freelancing and just doing odd jobs and like flipping couches off Craigslist and like just like random stuff. And Chelsey was always like the stable, like, I'm going to be the sugar mama. I'm going to have the real job while Stephen just like doing craziness over here. But she got into photography. I was into videography. And so it was kind of this creative thing. And you were working a pretty stable job at the time. This is during college. But then starting to shoot, senior portraits on the side and like started to shoot weddings. And it was like, dang, I could make like a full-time shift in 1 hour, And so she started to see leverage of time. And so I think when you start tasting that and you're like, wow, like I love this. It's creative. It's not as structured. I was just encouraging her, hey, quit the job. And it was a long time of me being like the quit the job guy till she actually quit the job and went all in with me. And we did a creative business together, and we ran that photo video business for, I think, close to 11 years. And it was just such a great, I think, learning ground for us, because it was like, there's no boss, right? We can make our own hours. But also early in marriage, we got married shortly after starting that business. And it just taught us so much about working together, roles, communication, and we just learned, I think, just through stumbling through it. We didn't go to business school or anything like that. And so we learned through the pain of hey, we're both going to do the emails. Hey, emails come in, we'll both do them. That's a bad idea. Right. Cause then it's like, oh, babe, why didn't you do this email? And she's like, why didn't you do the email? Right. We didn't have roles. And so as we started to develop in our business, we started to really identify strengths. I have strengths, and she has strengths. I have weaknesses. She has weaknesses. And so I love working together to find those strengths and weaknesses. So now in our business, we've really defined man, that's your strength. You need to put all your effort into that. And this is my strength. I need to put all my effort into that. And then all the weaknesses that we don't cover between us, we build team around, right? So we have a big team that helps us run our businesses. And that's been such a journey. But I think you kind of almost have to clash a little bit and figure out those pain points so that you can start to develop roles. We didn't do this, but I know E-Myth talks about this. Even if you're new in your business and you're maybe it's just you and your spouse, right? Create an org chart, right? Here's a standard org chart. Just Google standard org chart, right? You got sales, you got marketing, you got fulfillment, and just start putting a name on each one of those places. Even if it's you're in 4 spots and she's in 4 spots. That's just so helpful to know that's your responsibility. You're going to own it. And when it grows past your capacity, we're going to hire someone to take that place, right? You're going to level out of it. And so we did not do that in the early days. We just kind of figured it out slowly. But if I was going back to my younger entrepreneur self, I would say do that, because it just gives really clear lanes that you can thrive in.
Yeah, especially when you are working with your partner, because it gets a little messy in the business, which then carries over into the home and the household as well. Chelsey, is there anything that you would add to that in terms of your experience through that transition?
Yeah, I think it's just trial by fire. We were really thrown into it. We had our wedding business that I was mostly running on the side so that Stephen could pour more into Rainmakers and marketing. And we were doing some different affiliate stuff too at the time. And it really was miraculous how Rainmakers took off. It was February 2020. We just did a live challenge and it just blew our minds of how amazing it did. And then it set us on this trajectory of where we are with Rainmakers today. But at the time, I was just helping Stephen little bits here and there. I was more I'm going to run our wedding business. I was staying in my lane with running our wedding business, and he was staying in his lane with doing Rainmakers. And then all of a sudden we have this business that Stephen, we didn't even have a support email. It was just message us on Facebook, which is not a good idea. So I laugh at, back then, how did you grow? And it really is just trial by fire. And I think for me, what changed is we do serve moms, and I became a mom. Our son was a newborn when we did that big challenge. And so it really solidified for me, this deeper why. It's weddings was all about legacy in the start. But then becoming a mom and what the business model that we are teaching did for us, it was just I would be selfish to not share this and to not be a part of it. And so I think my heart grew as we stepped into something that I didn't really realize we were stepping into. And now I think I am constantly, and we both are, just evaluating, are we in our sweet spot? Am I doing what only I can be doing without getting all into the weeds and overwhelm. And same thing with Stephen, like he needs to have time aside to be the visionary, to dream, to cash the vision for our community. And then of course, raising people up and hiring people that are different from you, that have different skill sets. That is like what has taken our company to the next level, is just hiring A players.
Yeah, I love that. So essentially what you guys did is you looked at your strengths and you also looked at where your weaknesses overlapped, and you hired out all of the areas where your weaknesses overlapped. Is that right? I love that. Let me ask you guys this, because we're all about, just being vulnerable and not always painting a picture of like how great and happy and perfect everything is. I'm sure for you guys through this transition, there were some bumps in the road, maybe some clashes, maybe even some fights, maybe some power struggles. I'm curious to know, does anything come to mind when we talk about maybe some of the challenges that you faced as an entrepreneur couple really growing into the positions that you are today?
Yeah. I mean, I think of like a kind of a broad example, because I kind of led in the entrepreneurship at the beginning. It's actually funny because the same thing happened in our wedding business. I was not more creative. I was the first with a camera, I'll say. I was shooting, I was going to film school. Chelsey got a camera, and slowly she got better than me, right? In like photography. And then I'd be like second shooting for her at weddings, and she'd be like, Stephen, you missed this, you missed that. Like she just got so good. And we're kind of seeing the same thing happen in entrepreneurship, where I led at the beginning. I would feel like too controlling, where I'd be like, hey, you write the emails, but I'll check them before you send them. And it kind of like, it was because I was stronger at the beginning, but then she got better and better. And that just started to slow us down. And now she's so strong in the business that like, it's taken me like a little bit to go like, whoa, like get out of the way, like, because truly our business blew up when she stepped in, like when she became like a part of the business, like, cause we were kind of doing it separate, and like, she was holding down the fort with the weddings. We started blowing up in early 2020, and then the world shuts down, all our weddings get canceled. So she leans fully in with me. That's when the business took off, because it was missing this piece. And so I've learned, like, I think for the husbands out there that have powerful women in their life, like make room, and I think there's like, as men, sometimes we want to like control, or we want to, be the powerful one. But I think I've developed my own confidence in like, I'm really powerful in my own way, and she's really powerful in her own way, and we're not in competition, And so I think that's been very helpful to like, just check the ego at the door and just like, be like, if I serve her and elevate her, like it elevates us, and having that team mindset. I think we are constantly, if we're fighting, having to remind ourselves, like, I'm on your team, we say that to each other a lot. Like, hey, I'm on your team. And that like really helps, because it can be this thing where you're like, she's like, I want this thing. And I'm like, I want this thing. And we're just bashing heads on it. And then when we're like, okay, we're on each other's teams. How can I love you? How can you love me? That really helps us come together and find that common way forward.
I think another thing that I didn't expect, that I'm constantly being just right in front of my face all the time, is your entrepreneurship is all about the inner work, the deep inner stuff, that like the child wounds, the child trauma, the things that you didn't believe about yourself to be true, that all like bubbles to the surface when you're an entrepreneur, and then leading a team even more so. And as Stephen was sharing, like I was getting emotional, because like I often count the cost. Like there is a cost to doing it together, to being on mission, to having like we have a huge vision for Rainmakers that is so scary and so beyond. And I have no idea how we're going to get there, but I know that it's possible. And then, so that growth of like, do I actually believe that I am qualified to do this? Like, I think that's one of my biggest things that's been, again and again, like I am qualified, and we're in a place now in our business where we're hiring people who thankfully have gone the distance before we have, and that are more qualified in some areas than we have. And sometimes that's intimidating when you hire people that are stronger, that have better leadership, that are just more gifted in a certain area. And it's just like, wow, you want to come work for me? You want to come work for my company that I started in our little tiny, like when I was holding a newborn, like nursing a baby on this live video that just, so I think that is what I go to. And I think people are messy, whether the people that you're serving or the team, and it's not always easy. And I think as leaders, to admit that you're wrong and to take full ownership over your company, over your business is so important, because it's so easy to blame somebody for you didn't do it right. Or, I hear students like, it's your fault that I didn't succeed. Or, you know what I mean? I think just taking ownership. And I think those are the kinds of things that people don't always talk about is there is a cost to running a business and building something big, but it's always worth it. Again, you go back to that vision of like, why am I doing this? Why am I here? Like all of those things. So that's what I would add to that.
Mm-hmm. I love that. The way that you worded that is that there is a cost. And I think that that's important for people to hear, because like I said kind of earlier, is when people don't think that they have to invest, whether time, money, whatever it is, when they feel like there isn't a cost, but then they get into entrepreneurship, it's harder than they expected, and they get very, very discouraged. I think it's important for people to know that it's normal and just kind of normalize what entrepreneurship really is, but also knowing that it absolutely is worth the rewards. So kind of going down this topic, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Does work-life balance exist? And what does that look like for you guys?
I love this question. I don't think there's such thing as balance, especially when you can't have work-life balance, because our family will always come above the business. It will always have more weight than the business. So if you can see my hands, I've kind of got this scale, and it's never going to be perfect like this, because our family will always take the priority. So I don't think you can balance something when there's one thing that has more weight than the other. And so, I know that word gets thrown around, how to have balance. How do you have balance and do it all? And I don't. My family's always going to come first, and we structure our business, we structure our week so that our kids and our marriage comes first.
Yeah. I think Dan Martell called it you need counterbalance, right? If you have two things that are unequal weight, family's always of higher weight than business. You need counterbalance, right? So if the business, you're in a season, we're big believers in seasons, okay? Nature, okay? Fall, summer. I'm coming back to it. I just found a way, But there's seasons. We look outside, there's day, there's night, right? It's not natural to balance day and night at the same time. It's not natural to balance winter and summer at the same time. So why do we try to balance in our business and life, right? When these things they're totally different, right? So counterbalance is really key. So what's really helped us is seasons where we're like, hey, this is a little bit more of a hustle season for the next 2 weeks because we're doing a launch. We're clearly communicating that with each other, with our kids, with our family and people helping us in life. But then after that, we're going to counterbalance. We're going on a trip, family vacation. We're going to totally unplug. Every single week we are doing a family meeting and looking at this week and saying, how can we counterbalance, right? Oh, I got this extra thing at night. I usually don't do webinars at night, but this one time I'm doing a webinar at night. So I'm going to counterbalance the next day. I'm going to take some extra time with the boys because they're going to be a little daddy deficient, and the boys, they get daddy deficient. They are going to be acting up. So we got to counterbalance. So we're big into that, that we are prioritizing family first by scheduling family first. We have date nights scheduled for the whole year in advance, because if we don't put it on the calendar, it doesn't happen. We have quarterly reviews that we do as a couple. I know this sounds kind of corporate, but it's just what works for us to schedule in advance. Let's get 2 days to just be just us away from the boys. Just go one day personal, spa day, treat yourself day, and the next day business. And let's look at our business goals and check in on those things. And then we do, family vacations and stuff. We plan those first in the year before we're planning business. So that way we're ensuring we're actually doing what we say we believe, right? And not just letting business fill the gap. We had a lot of years where, we just joined the masterminds, go to the conferences, do all the things, and then be like, wow, we traveled a lot this year as a family, which is something we like to do, but it was all business, and we really wanted to counterbalance that. So we started every single year pre-planning the year as much as we could with family first in there. And then setting rules around the calendar too, where it's we know if a business trip is more than this many days, we need to cut it short because the season of life we're in, our boys can really only go this many days, right? Without daddy and mommy home, right? And we know travel within a month. We know our max. If there's more than, for us, it's, I think, 2 basically weekends that if we're traveling 2 weekends. More than that, like 3 is just pushing it, And so we kind of have rules around our calendar so that when opportunities come our way, which a lot of opportunities do, we can say yes or no based on like making these decisions first for our family.
And that, I think, right there has eliminated for me the mom guilt that people talk about, or dad guilt or parent guilt or whatever. Like, I genuinely on a day-to-day basis don't feel that way because of these systems we set up. And now, granted, it's not always perfect. I have weeks where it's like, wow, this launch is like intense. And I know that I'm holding on to this vacationing at the end to spend extra time with them. But generally, like from a day to day, when we're not in like a super intense season, like I don't feel this pull of like, oh, I want to be with them. Of course, I think about them and I love them, but then I'm allow myself to be super focused in on work because I love what we do. And then I turn it off and I'm like, I'm done. Like, I have no desire to go and check whatever notification. I'm with the boys. And so having that preloaded calendar, having those, like systems in place has allowed so much freedom where I genuinely don't feel that guilt often. I will say often because it does happen from time to time, but yeah.
Yeah. I feel like so many people are being set free by what you both just shared, because you both approach life and business and priorities from a seasonal perspective, knowing that even if we have a lot of work to do in the business now, there is an end date for it, which is very practical. And you counterbalance the seasons of hustle and grind with seasons of rest and prioritize family time, which not only is helpful from just practicing what you preach, it's also helpful from like what Chelsey said, which is from a mentality standpoint. We've talked to so many entrepreneur couples who kind of operate in what we call the gray zone, where half of their mind is in business, but while they're working in business, they're thinking, I should be spending time with my family. Or vice versa, when they're with their family, they're thinking, shoot, but if I just spent a couple more hours in the business, I would be so much further ahead and I would be a better provider for my family. So there's this constant tug of war going on in the minds of so many couples. And what you both just shared is such a practical way to eliminate, both from a schedule standpoint and a mental standpoint, that tug of war in the mind. So that way there's more synergy. Not saying it's perfect, right? Not saying that the mom guilt or the parent guilt or any of the guilt goes away 100%. But you could practically plan out your family time in advance, knowing that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, no matter how busy life gets. So thank you guys so much for sharing that. That's so cool. Speaking of mom guilt, I know one of the things that we talked about when you guys had us on your show was the guilt that a lot of moms, and I would imagine even dads as well, feel when it comes to hiring out help around the house, so that way they can focus more on the business during the seasons of business focus. So I'd love to hear from you guys how you've kind of transitioned through that mindset and being okay with hiring help, not just in the business, but also in the household in order to give you more time and energy to focus on the business.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. The first one is just getting around other entrepreneurial couples or other high-level CEOs, moms who are outsourcing and are like, I cannot be fully present with my family and at work if I don't like outsource my laundry and, the list of whatever else they're doing. So I personally have found so much freedom from other moms who I know who are outsourcing even more so than what Stephen and I are doing. So it challenges me to like, what else can I free up? So I think that's number one, just, we live in a small town and a lot of people that I know don't have a regular house cleaner or somebody who does the laundry. So there's already that little bit of like, ooh, we're the only ones. But then when I surround myself with other like masterminds, with other people, which I'm sure like your audience does, like it just is freeing. So I'm reminded of that often if I ever start to feel like, ooh, should I be doing, like, I think early days, like, oh, should I be doing that? Is it okay? I just remind myself like, oh, this person does this, and this, and like, that's amazing. So that's been really freeing for me. And then I think the other thing is just starting with the thing that you hate the most, like what is something that is taking a lot of time away from your family that you just shouldn't be doing. So you start small and then it grows. And I think that's just what we did. We started I think way back when we had somebody that came in that helped us with an Airbnb, we were like running because we were doing it ourselves. And so we just started outsourcing that. And it was just so amazing to like have your time back. So I think it's all about baby steps, really looking at what in my day to day should I not be doing that doesn't give me life, that takes me away from my family? Who can I hire to like do that? And you start with the small thing. And then I think as you experience the freedom of, wow, look at how much time I have back, you just start to begin to want to do more of that. Like we are always thinking like, what else can we do? I remember we hired a handyman to like put some pictures up and a few other random things around our house on a Saturday so that we could spend time with our boys. And I just remember being like, that was like the best $200 that we spent. You know, how cool is it that he did a better job that we would have done? And we got to spend time with our boys. Like, how cool is that? So I think for me, that is what's helped. But yeah, surrounding yourself with other people, they're doing the same thing. And then also you got to start with the small. You don't usually start with like everything. At least for me, I didn't. And then you just gradually work your way up.
Yeah. And I'll speak to the kids thing because I feel like that's the one that like moms and dads can wrestle with. We're not talking about just pawning our kids off all the time. What has really helped us is me and Chelsey have different levels of like, if Chelsey works, you know, this, if you guys are watching the video, she works this much, that's where mom guilt hits. Right. So we kind of learn where that balance is. I can probably work a little more before I'm like, oh, shoot, I need to be with the boys. Right. So we actually developed a dream week for Chelsey. She went first and really was like, what do I need in my week to like really have total peace on my work days and my mom days? And so for her, it's really like 2.5 days in the business that she's like full on CEO mode, Monday, Tuesday, and like half day Wednesday. And then the rest of the day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's all mom time. Right. If she worked Monday through Thursday, she'd be feeling too much of that. Like, oh, I want to be with the boys. And so the other thing that helps is hiring really quality people. And so we know when our boys are with our nanny on those Monday, Tuesdays, like it's good time. Like she's really taking care of them. And like, that's very helpful too. Or it's with family. Like we have family around us. And so that's like, oh, cool. They're getting sweet time with grandparents. Like, so that really helps is one, having quality people your kids are with. But two, if you're feeling that, maybe you should put more family days in there, or maybe put like, we have friends that just do Wednesdays. Every Wednesday is just like a family day. And it's just a thing that like your business will work around you, you know? So I work more of a Monday through Friday. I cut my days off at 4 p.m. and Chelsey does that half week. And honestly, I feel like she's just as productive as I am because she's so laser focused during the time frame. Cause she's like, I need to be focused here so I can be fully with the family there. And that really helps. So like develop your week around where your capacity is. And then you find help for the in-between.
And you guys call that a dream week? Is that right?
We call it the dream week. Yeah. It's the concept is sit down, figure out all the things that like, when you have a really good week, what are the things that were in there, right? Was it a date night? Was it a hour with a friend or a coffee? Was it working out 3 times and moving your body? And scheduling, was it time with your kids, right? Scheduling those dream things first. And like, we like to theme our days too. And so like, hey, this is a personal day. This is a family day. This is a business day. And it keeps you in the same kind of brain modality all day long. And then that's your rules. And we just stick to the rules, you know? And like, I know it sounds weird to have rules, but it really allows you to kind of have creative thriving within the rules. It's just like a garden, you know? If you don't have a lattice, your tomatoes are going to go crazy. So you need a little bit of structure so that you can really grow big things. You need structure in your life. And so that has really helped us out a lot is we both have rules around our calendar, what days we say yes to things, what days we say no to things. And we make people play by the rules. They come to us.
So good. I love the practicality of everything that you guys just shared. And we do a lot of very similar things. So it's just cool to see kind of the synergy of what works for a lot of entrepreneur couples. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And the fruit is there.
And the fruit.
It is there. No weeds in this guy.
No weeds.
Right. We're going to bring it back. Always.
That's right. Yeah.
So I want to kind of wrap this up with one of the questions that we just love to ask. So it's a big one. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So if you had an audience of only entrepreneur couples and you had just one piece of advice that would transform how they grow businesses, together as a couple, what advice would you give them? And I want to hear from both of you. So Chelsey, I'll maybe start with you.
Okay.
What advice? Okay, I'm just going with like the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And I think if you are an entrepreneur couple that wants to grow a business, like your marriage needs to come first. And that might feel like well, duh. But I think that in business, it's really easy to lose sight of like love and connection and putting each other first and meeting each other's needs versus like, I think it could be really easy to start a business together and even like grow apart in that. You're so focused on your roles and responsibilities and vision. And I think really coming back to like, are we taking care of each other? Are we nurturing our own relationship? Is our relationship like having fruit? Are we growing more in love? Are we connected more than ever? Are we on the same page? Like, I think if you can nurture that first, then your team and your business will thrive. I think it always goes back to whenever Stephen and I have seen big growth in our business, it's always come from our own personal growth first. And it's like usually happening at the same time, both of us going through the same stuff, wrestling through the things that you probably aren't seeing on social media. It's like those deep internal like realizations, epiphanies, that inner work that you do first, and then your business grows. So that sounds very simple and kind of like a weird concept, but just having your marriage has to come first.
Yeah. In the early days of our marriage, we'd always go like this: protect the connection. Like we'd always like say that because like you just feel when you're kind of getting a little disconnected. And like Chelsey said, you gotta grow the roots before you grow the fruits, right? And if you can't impact your world, you're not going to impact the world, right? If you can't transform your world, you're not going to transform the world. So stuff will often manifest in your relationship that you have to like, wow, we're bringing more things into the light in our marriage. And then all of a sudden now it's happening in your business, right? Oh, we're going deeper on this thing in our marriage and our family. And then it's happening in your business. So I think people think these two things are separate, but really like this is the roots of the fruits that you see out there. And you will, like, people you lead will reflect what you carry. And so if you haven't gone through it yourself and don't have authority in it, then like you're not going to be able to give it to the people you're leading. And so I just agree with Chelsey on that one. Protect the connection.
Protect the connection. I love it.
Protect the connection. I love it. That seems like it should be a t-shirt or something. I love it.
Well, guys,
yeah, and there would for sure be some sort of gardening reference in that shirt. There'd be, guys, thank you guys so much for just sharing the wisdom that you guys have. We could ask you questions all day long because every minute that goes by, you share one nugget that is so helpful for entrepreneur couples. And we're just so appreciative of that. If people listening want to hear more from you and continue to get wisdom from you, how do they connect with you on the interwebs? We have a podcast. If you love listening to shows, the Rainmaker Family Show on all the platforms. We had these guys on the show, so definitely check out that episode, as well as rainmakerfamily.com. You can get info on what we're doing and all the socials and all the things. So thank you guys.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. But Stephen and Chelsey, thank you guys for sharing the wisdom that you do. We are so glad to have you here and know that this is going to impact a lot of entrepreneur couples. So thank you.
Yeah. And as always, for you guys and everybody watching, thank you so much for proving that you don't have to choose between having a successful business or a successful relationship. You are living proof that you can have both. So thank you so much for tuning into the Coupleprenuers Show, and we will see you in the next episode very soon.